Okay.
You're
Greetings
live.
and greetings and welcome to the superintendent's first critical conversation meeting of the 2020-21 school year. Tonight's meeting is streaming live on YouTube and will be recorded for those individuals that are unable to attend this evening. That information will be uploaded and shared on the district's website. A link to tonight's meeting agenda can be located in the YouTube description box below the actual video footage this evening. Due to the anticipated number of participants, a feedback form was extended to all stakeholders to submit questions for the meeting this evening. Those questions will be entertained during the Q&A portion of tonight's meeting. Please be advised, if we are unable to address your question this evening, a member of the communications team will review and filter and work with the appropriate district level staff to make sure you receive your feedback. For the record, tonight we received approximately 31 questions. If you elect to submit additional questions with the form that was provided, we will be sure to make sure, again, that we entertain your questions within a day or so of this meeting. As a reminder for all internal staff, please keep cell phones and computers, in silent mode unless presenting and or posing questions or responding to any statements from the public. Please remember to unmute your phones when addressing the public this evening. For your information about the upcoming meetings, please visit our website at www.clayton.k12.ga.us. And at this time, I'd like to welcome the Clayton County Board of Education, along with our superintendent and CEO of schools. I'll start with our board chair, Ms. Jessie Goree, representing District 3.
Good
Ms. Goree, would
evening.
you like to provide some greetings this evening?
Yes, I unmuted. I just wanted to say good evening, constituents of Clayton County. Welcome to virtual school year 2021. I know it has been a challenge because it's been one for me, but once we get all the kinks out, it's going to be an amazing school year. And I just wish your scholars the very best. And as Ms. Dawkins said, I am Jessie Goree, District 3, BOE. Enjoy the meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Goree. And next, I'd like to welcome our board vice president, Dr. Alika Anderson, representing District 8.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Alika Anderson, and I'm your school board member for District 8. As my board chair so eloquently put it, this has been a very different year, challenging year, but I know that we're going to make it through. Just know that we understand, and we hope that you will continue to work with us. We know that your scholars are going to have a great 2021 school year, and we wish them the best. We wish you the best, and please just continue. We're in this together, and we're going to make it through this together. And just know that you have my support. If you need me, I'm here. I'm a listening ear. I'm whatever you need from me, I'm here. Thank you so much. From Dr. Alika Anderson, District 8.
Thank you so much. And next we have our board member representing District 1, Ms. Jasmine Bowles.
Good evening, everyone. It's Jasmine Bowles from District 1, sending greetings to all of our scholars, parents, and educators who have started the school year in this most unconventional way. Want you to know that I'm sending love and affirmations for everything that you all are undertaking this year, and I'm excited to be with you all tonight to continue to learn and listen.
And I'm not sure if our board member representing District 2, Mr. Mark Christmas, has joined us. If not, we certainly thank him for his leadership as always. And next we will provide a greeting for our next board member, Ms. Victoria Williams, representing District 4.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to just say thank you to all our teachers and staff for everybody's hard work and understanding when times get rough, and let them know if they need anything, they need to, they can email one of us or call one of us, and we'll be happy to assist. Thank y'all. Enjoy the school year.
Thank you. And I'm not sure if Miss Ophelia Burrows, representing District 5, has joined us this evening. If not, we'd also like to thank her for her leadership and her support as always. And next, without further ado, I don't believe I see Miss Mary Baker, representing District 6, on the line with us, but I would also like to commend and thank her for her leadership and support to the school system as well. I do see that we have Miss Judy Johnson, representing District 7. Ms. Johnson, would you like to offer some greetings this evening?
Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be with you tonight virtually. I just thank Dr. Beasley for having this critical conversation. I have learned so much during the years through these conversations by questions that are asked of our constituents and by answers that Dr. Beasley so wisely gives. I'm looking forward to this school year. I know it's going to be great. And as all of our board members have said, if you need us, don't hesitate to get in touch with us. We are here to serve you. Hope we all have a great year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Johnson. And without further ado, I'd like to, before welcoming our superintendent and CEO of schools, just a reminder, a friendly reminder, we do have interpretation services, language and interpretation services available on our YouTube Live. And I'd like to publicly take this opportunity to thank Ms. Chantel Normil, the director of the Office of Second Language Learning, for supporting us this evening with this opportunity. Those services is available if you look under the video screen. If you're streaming in live, if you view underneath the video screen, you can click if you need Spanish, Vietnamese, or any other languages interpreted for you. We are offering that for you this evening. And again, thank you to all of our community, all of our partners in education. And we certainly would like to, again, commend our board members for your leadership and your support to all of the internal staff. Without further delay, I'd like to welcome virtually our superintendent and CEO of schools, Dr. Morcease J. Beasley.
Thank you, Jada. Hello, everybody. Can y'all hear me? Thumbs up if you can hear me. I know you can hear me. Excellent. Well, it's good to see all of you. Good to be in a virtual space with all of you as we're in the, can you believe now, the third week of school, So the year is moving along. We're having school virtually, and we are doing just that. We are having school. I want to thank the board members for being here today. We know that there are many things all of us can or possibly should be doing, but to have this conversation is very important as we've shared in light of this pandemic. And even if it were not for the pandemic, it's just important to stay connected and engaged, to know what's going on, to be a part of the decision-making, to share concerns, to hear information, so you can be an advocate for yourselves, for your children, and for our school system. What I like to do, we have an agenda, so we'll adhere to the agenda, but I'd just like to share a few comments. You know, I heard Ms. Goree say that, you know, it's been challenging this year, and we all agree that it's been challenging for many reasons. But I'd like to also say that we've seen some opportunities this year. As a matter of fact, even when I think about the board meetings, we've had roughly, I think one board meeting, we've had over 12, 13, 14, maybe 15,000 people to view the board meeting. That is pretty impressive. So while the pandemic has posed some challenges for us, it also has given us some opportunities. More people are engaged, more people are a part of the conversation, they're getting information, they're sharing information, and they're being informed. And so we'll continue to find all those bright spots throughout this pandemic to highlight the good work that's occurring in Clayton County Public Schools. And so I want to commend, of course, the board. I want to commend the staff, our teachers, our principals, our parents, and our students for working collaboratively to navigate this situation. It is a difficult circumstance to deal with, but it's one beyond our control, at least for now. And it's one that we are dealing with, and we're hopefully dealing with it in a positive manner. At least that's our intention, and that's our goal. So as we've already shared, this is our third week of school. We started virtually on August 10th, and amazingly, this is the third week. Our students are engaging with their teachers. They're using Chromebooks, laptops, etc. And teachers are teaching the content, teaching the curriculum. They're engaged in social emotional activities at the onset of every day or instructional period. And they're teaching the standards at a level that will help the students be successful, not just on the current grade level, but beyond the current grade level. We know that teaching in a virtual environment comes with its challenges. So teachers are also managing the classroom. Sometimes they're dealing with students who seem to get distracted or want to focus on other things. So teachers are still having to do what great teachers do: manage the classroom, manage the space, if you will, teach the content, engage every student, and basically provide the best instructional experience. We're very grateful that we started this year virtually in a better place than we ended last year. We were able to issue about 40,000 devices that we had inside the district. They were, some of them rather old, laptops, etc. But then our board in May approved for us to purchase about 40,000 new Chromebooks. And those Chromebooks have been coming in from the distributor, and our technology department is working with our principals, starting with the high school principals, to get those Chromebooks distributed. And as we collect the laptops, those laptops will also be used to help our kindergartners, first graders, and second graders. So we should have a situation where all of our kids are connected to their teachers. If a family needs internet or Wi-Fi, we have hotspots that we're grateful that our partners, our foundation, and others have stepped up to the plate to assist us. So in Clayton County, whether it be a device or whether it be access to the internet to use the device for virtual learning, we are doing our best to provide all the resources and support needed to navigate this situation. Ideally, we'd like to return face-to-face as soon as possible, and our board has committed to reassessing that situation or the face-to-face option every 9 weeks or sooner. But I want you to know that we're counting on our public to get the data under control so we can come back face-to-face as soon as possible. Just so you'll know, we'll be bringing to our board some ideas for phasing in or face-to-face. As the data improves, we'll bring that information to the board on Monday, this coming Monday, August 31st at 6 p.m. So I encourage you to tune in. And we'll also, of course, once we share that information with the board, we'll release it so our community can see what we have developed in collaboration with our task force, parents, and the feedback of others. Thank you for completing the first week of school survey. That information has been so important. We'll also share that information or summary of that information and whatever actions we've taken with the board on Monday as well, because we're trying to manage through the best that we can in this situation or through the situation. And your feedback is very critical. And I'll say this, our work is to work with our community. We're not here to lord or dictate or be authoritarian over our community. We're here to walk alongside you, to give you our best thinking and expertise, our best recommendations, so that we as a community can make progress through and beyond this pandemic. And so you'll see, and I encourage you, whenever you get those surveys, please take time to give us your feedback, because we actually go through all that data. We use the data to discuss and to inform our decisions. These critical conversations, when you ask questions and when you make comments, we use this data to inform our conversations and our decisions. And so whether it be face-to-face or survey, we count on your feedback and your engagement as we try to make the very best decision to move our school system forward, again, during this pandemic and well beyond this pandemic. I want to encourage you again to participate in the board meeting on Monday. We'll also be sharing our advanced placement data. We have some good news to share there about how our district is closing the gap between the state and the nation. relative to advanced placement. So we know we're making progress, but we know we've got a lot more progress that we can make. So what I'd like to do at this time, we have various departments that are going to share updates with everyone, and then our communications team will take us through the questions that you have already posed. We'll be very mindful of your time because we know that you've got other things to do, but we also know how important it is for you to participate in this opportunity. So at this time, what I'd like to do is pitch it back to Ms. Dawkins so she can facilitate us through the agenda. Thank you all for being here today, and I look forward to engaging with you not only today, but throughout the rest of the school year.
Thank you, Dr. Beasley. And next, we would like to welcome Dr. Ralph Simpson, our Chief Deputy Superintendent of the Office of School Leadership and Improvement, as well as Dr. Ebony Lee, our Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum, Instruction and Assessment, to provide instructional updates for the 2020-21 school year. Dr. Simpson.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Dawkins. And that is my welcome and my introduction. I'm not going to belabor the point. Dr. Lee will be sharing a brief overview of some of the instructional updates. As Dr. Beasley alluded to, much more in-depth sharing and updates coming on Monday's board meeting, but just a brief overview of some of the highlights right now. And Dr. Lee, you can take it at this time. Dr. Lee, did we lose you?
Okay, here I am. I was muted. Thank you, Dr. Simpson.
Yeah.
And all. Well, good evening, everyone. And thank you, community, and of course, our staff members and the parents for joining us this evening. As Dr. Simpson stated, I'm going to just provide a brief update regarding some of the tools parents specifically and our caregivers that you can use to really partner with us on this journey. As Dr. Beasley stated, we know it has not been without challenge, but that's even more reason why we have to take a collaborative approach and really support each other. So I'll remind everyone of the Parent Virtual Learning Toolkit. I'll also share at a high level our survey data. Thank you, parents and students, for providing us with that feedback. I'll conclude by sharing with our parents that we have some upcoming parent webinars to address some of the challenges that you shared in the survey. And then I'll just speak briefly to the Virtual Learning Academy because I already received that was a question. And so I'll start with the Parent Virtual Learning Toolkit. We launched that the end of July, and the purpose of the toolkit, parents, was to give you information that's immediately accessible. So you can just go to the front of our website, the side top left, and you'll see Parent Virtual Learning Toolkit. In there, if you have questions about the meal distribution stops and times, that information is located there, as well as what students should be learning in the various subject areas. We've uploaded videos of what instruction looks like virtually, what it should look like in the content areas, and we'll continue to add to those bank of videos. Also, we've had parents to share tips with us on how they're managing and supporting the at-home learning environment. So in our toolkit, we have a section called Parent Tips. We also have our Parent Student Handbook in there. You know, attendance and grading, there was some flexibility in the spring, but this is real school right now. And so we are counting attendance every day. So we need students present every day, and their assignments need to be accessed and submitted on time because we are grading those assignments, and the grades are going into the grade book. And speaking of that, the parent portal, it is so important that you have access and you're able to go into the parent portal. So on the toolkit, if you've forgotten your credentials or you need to know how to sign up, there's a section called Infinite Campus Parent Portal. So I just encourage you to take some time to explore the portion of the toolkit that provides you with information that we feel is most critical, and really it just complements what the school is providing to you through their website. So next, I would like to share the perception survey. So it was important to us, and Dr. Beasley emphasized, we want to get a pulse on where we are the very first week. So if we need to make adjustments or, make some changes, we can do so early in the process. I think we all understand the decisions made will not appease or please everyone. So we've just tried to take a very holistic approach to reviewing the survey data. But just to summarize it, what we've learned from the questions is that for the most part, all of our students are being checked on at the start of the day. So that question that asked about if someone is asking students how they're doing, how they're feeling, overwhelmingly, parents and students responded yes. And that's so important, that social emotional learning, that our students show up ready to learn. Also, the majority of our parents, about 90%, almost 90%, indicated that students had consistent access to a device or an internet hotspot. So that's impressive, and that's good to know because we need our students to engage with the learning. There was a question about the distribution of meals being timely and if students had time to eat. And we know that from that response, while it was favorable, there were some comments that alluded to some changes that need to occur, and those changes are underway. And then we asked, what are your overall thoughts about our response to virtual learning? And you all provided us some really good feedback, above average performance. And then we went through the thousands of comments, and a lot of the comments were regarding the schedule. Some felt the schedule wasn't long enough. Some thought students needed less screen time, more breaks. And so again, we had to take a holistic approach. And I will say our principals, they collaborated, and and Monday at the board meeting, we'll share those updates, but just specifically, we at the elementary level, we have minimized some of the screen time, added more breaks, and taken some other things in consideration. And so we're just asking our parents and community to be patient, to be flexible, continue to provide your feedback to us because we are reading it and we are using it. As a result of the comments from the survey, we are launching parent webinars. We started some in the spring, and those are going to start this Friday, and we will have four sessions total between this Friday and the end of September, every Friday from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock. And you can go into the parent portal, and over 80% of you said you've been in the parent portal. You can go into the parent portal right now and access the link for the upcoming webinar. And on that webinar, we're going to address some of the things that you stated were challenging, just managing, especially if you have more than one child at home. Also, you will hear some specific tips for supporting our early learners. And so we encourage you to go ahead and be prepared to join us this Friday at 2 o'clock. They will be recorded, all of the webinars, and they will be posted in the Parent Virtual Learning Toolkit. So be sure you know how to access that. So I would like to close by just sharing a few tips from what I've heard from teachers, and just remember it by the 5 A's. The 5 A's. So we want our students to be in attendance every day. So A for attendance. We want our students to have the proper attire, and proper attire just means something they could wear to school and it is appropriate. So attendance, attire. We want our students to be aware of their surroundings behind them because they are on a web camera. So that awareness is important. We want our students to approach the day with the right attitude. They are still learning, and our students should not associate learning with an actual school building because, as we see, we have to be flexible in today's times. And so we want the right attire, awareness, attendance, attitude. And let me just remember the assignments, submitting their assignments on time. And so you just have those in mind, parents and caregivers, as we're working with our students so they show up ready. And then finally, the Virtual Learning Academy, the applications close this Friday, August 28th. So following the closing of the application, right now we have about 28% of our parents who've expressed interest, but we understand that some of you may want the option to opt out because you've learned more about our safety measures and what we'll be doing if and when we return face-to-face. And so after the 28th, that's when parents will learn about their students' acceptance, but also be given the option to opt out after you learn more about the virtual learning model. So again, parents and caregivers, continue to be with us and partner with us. And we just thank you for the commendable efforts that you're making and continue providing us with feedback. Thank you. Jada, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Lee, for those instructional updates and helpful tips. We certainly appreciate you and your team. Next, we'll hear from our Mr. Rod Smith. He's the chief of the technology division, and he has some insightful information to share with us. Many have posed questions about our devices. So here's the man, everyone, Mr. Rod Smith, to entertain your questions relative to our equipment and devices deployed to our students.
Thank you, Jada. Thank you, Dr. Beasley, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the board. I don't want to make it that official, but I do want to start out by saying that we are a month ahead of schedule. And you guys go way back when the district first started talking about providing our students with devices. Many districts were scrambling to try to figure out if they were going to do that or not. So thanks to Dr. Beasley and the board for making that happen. It allowed us to be a whole month ahead of schedule. Yesterday, we started deployment at Forest Park High School. I believe at the close of business today, they had distributed over half of those devices. Board Member Williams came out and was helping and supporting the students out there. And I can only tell you that those students were very excited. They were very respectful. Some of them even mentioned, and I told Dr. Beasley this the other day, that some of them even said, we like virtual learning. So kudos to Dr. Beasley and the board for making that happen. In addition to that, we'll be taking care of all the high schools first, then moving to the middle schools and repurposing those devices that come out of the high school and the middle schools back down to our K-2 scholars. So I'm excited. The last thing, and I know Jada said that there's some questions. I'll entertain those questions, time permitted. I just wanted to give, and Dr. Beasley has already publicly thanked the technology department, but many of them are watching this stream. And I just want to say, because they didn't leave till 6 o'clock today, so those guys are working around the clock to get 40,000 devices distributed. Okay. And we didn't think we were going to even have them until September. So they're doing a yeoman's job. I appreciate them. I appreciate all the hard work that the other team members that support the team that's responsible for distributing those devices. So Dr. Beasley, I'll wait till the end and try to answer any questions that the community might have.
Rod, I do have one question if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
Can students use their devices to participate in these critical conversations?
Students don't have access to Zoom with their devices. So perhaps we could figure out a way to make that happen, Dr. Beasley.
Can they participate in the YouTube? Do they get the YouTube?
They don't, because on the devices, YouTube is blocked because of FERPA and SIPA. Right. I'm sorry, not FERPA, SIPA. And we may be able to have a sidebar conversation. I think Zoom may have some flexibility through their webinars, and we may want to use a webinar service. I think we can get even more users into the meeting. So I think it goes up to, I don't want to quote it, but I'll look into that so that we can get some students to participate. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. And you're right, you have entertained the biggest or pressed issue that we have received. When will we receive devices? And as you've heard from Mr. Smith, they are currently, as we speak, being deployed. And we thank you for your leadership in that endeavor. Well, next we'll hear some critical information and updates relative to our safety and security initiatives from Chief Thomas Trawick. Chief Trawick, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Dawkins. Good evening, everyone. I'm Thomas Trawick, the Chief of Safety and Security, and I'm going to give two brief updates. The first update is associated with us partnering with nutrition to make those meal distribution stops safe, because I understand that there are some concerns with individual speeding when students are receiving meals, and just the overall safety of those students who are receiving those meals at the bus stop distribution locations. So I just want you all to know that we have the SROs patrolling in those areas, assisting nutrition and monitoring the activity at those stops to ensure that our students are receiving those nutritious meals and they're getting back home so that they can participate in the virtual learning. The other activity that I want to briefly discuss is directly associated with safety and security monitoring the activity during our virtual learning in our classrooms, because I think it's absolutely important for all of us to work together to make sure that those environments are conducive to teaching and learning. And thus far, we've done fairly well. We've done really, really well. But I do have a few concerns, and I really, really would appreciate the assistance from our parents with monitoring our young people as it relates to what they're putting out there when we have classes. And I want to give some specific information of what we're seeing. And parents, if you could help us with this, it would be greatly appreciated. We're seeing bullying, we're seeing threats, we're seeing nudity and pornographic material that's being, that's coming over with some of our young people. So what I would encourage would be for our parents to kind of monitor the activity, because none of us want to be bullied. None of us want to be picked on, especially in a virtual environment. So we want to make sure that we pay attention to what's out there, and we focus our primary attention on learning and understanding what's being taught by our excellent teachers. And I'm going to stop there because I'm sure there are some other questions as it relates to safety and security that I'll be willing to answer at the very end. But again, you know, I want to express the support from our parents, not just in the virtual environment, even at those bus stops, kind of escorting your students out and making sure those students return in a rather expeditious manner so they can get back online and participate in the day-to-day learning. Thank you very much. And Ms. Dawkins, I'll turn it back over to you.
Chief, will you share, Chief, when we are doing home visits? It may be helpful for parents to know that we are doing home visits, and there may be some behaviors that teachers observe online that warrant a home visit. Will you share that process with them as well?
Yes, sir. We do have a process, and some of you may have experienced this. If we see something that's threatening, or if we see something that's grossly out of the ordinary, the investigators are making home visits because we want to make sure that the environments are safe for our students and conducive to constructive behavior virtually. And what we're doing, we're sending officers over, we're coming over, and we're having some conversations about what we're monitoring and what we're seeing. And unfortunately, parents and students, you know, there can be penalties, there can be adjudication if we see behavior that's consistent with violations of the law. So, you know, just be aware of that. And not just that, the student code of conduct is also applicable. So yes, you will, if we see some gross indications of inappropriate conduct, we're gonna make a home visit so that we can work together to mitigate that challenge so that our students can have a productive online learning environment.
Thank you, Chief Trawick. Dr. Beasley, did you have an additional question?
No, I just wanted to make sure that parents heard that we are doing home visits, and that depending on what teachers and administrators are observing or counselors are observing virtually, it may warrant a home visit.
Yes, sir. And next, moving along with the agenda, we'll hear from Mr. Kevin May, our athletic director, with important athletic updates. Mr. May.
Thank you, Jada, and good evening, everyone. Good evening, board members, Dr. Beasley, and community.
Good evening.
I would like to offer a few updates for our athletic programs. First of all, our young men and women, our student athletes are very excited about the opportunity to play. There was obviously some question as to whether we would reach that point, and with the guidance of our superintendent and district administration, we did resume athletic activity yesterday on the 24th after a 2-week pause, so to speak, to see if our COVID data would get in line with us being able to move forward. So we did resume activity yesterday. We had some volleyball matches, and we will have some softball and volleyball matches this week. Our first football games, where our cheerleaders and football players will actually have competition, will be next Friday, September 4th. and our cross-country athletes will begin their competitions in September 12th. So they have a little bit of time. We are following all guidelines set forth by the GHSA, CDC, and our sanitizing. Dr. Smith, our deputy superintendent, and his team are implementing an enhanced Clorox cleaning. The custodial staff will be coming in after practices to utilize fogging machines to help with our cleanliness and our sanitation of locker rooms. So we're very excited about that. We are also in a partnership with Emory and the Atlanta Falcons with some trainers. We hope to have those trainers on board next week and on site, and they will continue throughout the entire school year with our athletic programs. That is big for our district, and I want to definitely thank our administration, Dr. Beasley, Dr. Simpson, Dr. Smith, and our board for seeing the need for that for our athletes. That will strengthen our athletic programs and definitely the safety of our athletes. To begin our year, we will not be allowing fans in attendance at games to start the year. We will take a look at that and take a look at our numbers and see how we're progressing through our games. And hopefully we'll reach a point where we can allow that. So we will be moving towards that. So we ask you to be patient with us on that to make sure that we can facilitate our game activities just for the kids to get started. And then we'll move forward from there. And lastly, for my update, our transportation of our student athletes, we are adhering to the bus of 24 students, no more than one per seat, with our student athletes, just as we would any other students that are being transported to school in some districts that may be doing face-to-face. So again, we're excited for our student athletes. Our coaches are excited. They really wanted to give our athletes this opportunity, and we look forward to hopefully getting back to normalcy at some point and moving forward. And we're looking forward to a great athletic season. So with that, thank you, Jada, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. May. And next, we will hear from Ms. Audrey Hamilton. And Ms. Hamilton is the Director of School Nutrition Services, and she will provide important updates relative to nutrition services. Ms. Hamilton?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Board Chair, Board Vice Chair, members of the Board, Superintendent Dr. Beasley, stakeholders, and our community. I want to remind and encourage our students, parents, and guardians that school breakfast and lunch is being offered every day, Monday through Friday, from 9 a.m. to 12 noon at all of our school sites. The food is prepared daily, it's fresh, it's healthy, provides the proper nutrients that our students need to thrive while they are studying at home in a virtual learning environment. Visit our department website to see the breakfast and lunch menus. And don't forget to visit the transportation website in order to see when your meals will be delivered to you and the community. We want to thank you, students, parents, and guardians, for participating in our meal services. We're excited about serving you, and our numbers are going up every day, and we're looking forward to reaching over 15,000 meals, and we're hoping to get that on tomorrow. So make sure you participate in our meal service program so we can hit the 15,000 meal mark on tomorrow. Thank you.
Exciting news. Dr. Beasley, would you like to add anything before we move into this portion of our meeting relative to questions and answers?
Well, I just like to piggyback off of what Ms. Hamilton said about we really want our parents to help the students get out there and get those meals. I want to say, and Audrey may correct me if I'm incorrect, but when we are normally in school face-to-face, they serve about 20,000 meals for breakfast, 20,000 for lunch or so. So about 40,000. So if we are at 15,000, we can get up to 20,000. And I think it's important. We want our kids to eat healthy. We want them to take full advantage of the food resources. And then we want to also ensure that we maximize our federal fund reimbursements as well. So our parents need to know that we get reimbursed when they participate in these in the school nutrition program. And so we don't want to lose funds for a resource that their taxes have paid for. And I have to always remind parents, the government, they're not giving us anything. Your taxes have been, your taxes are providing these resources. And so just wanted to encourage all of our students and families to take full advantage of that. And relative to athletics, Kevin mentioned that fans are not allowed. And we will reassess that as the data continues to improve. And we're hopeful that we'll be able to revisit that sooner than later. But parents, just know that we're monitoring the situation. We understand. And our goal is to at least try to broadcast, if not all the games virtually, some of the games virtually, so you can participate from the safety of your homes or using your devices, et cetera. So just work in progress and more to come as we move forward. So I'll toss it back to you, Jada and team, for Q&A.
Yes, sir. And just as a reminder, due to the anticipated number of participants, a feedback form was extended to all stakeholders this past week to submit your questions for the meeting this evening. Those questions have been monitored by the communications team and now will be posed by Mr. Ronald Shields, our communications specialist. We have received a total of 31 questions, I believe, and most of those have been redundant questions, and many, I'm told this evening, that we have entertained during the course of this meeting. So I'm happy to hear that news. But Ronald, if you would share some of the questions that we may not have had an opportunity to present on this afternoon.
Yes, ma'am. So the first question, good evening, everyone. The first question comes from a stakeholder, last name Marshall. She would like to know, are there any considerations to altering the meal delivery times so they do not impact instructional time?
And we'll toss that question to Ms. Hamilton. And feel free, my colleagues, if there's a question that you feel is geared towards your area of service, as a reminder, please unmute yourselves and expound accordingly. Thank you. Ms. Hamilton?
Thank you. This question has been under heavy consideration, and we're considering perhaps altering the meal times. However, we have been working with our principals and our assistant superintendents to ask our teachers if they will allow our students to take a break so they can step outside or come over to the curbside to pick up their breakfast and lunch. So we have been really considering this, and we will get back with everyone as soon as a final decision is made.
Thank you, Ms. Hamilton. Next question, Mr. Shields.
Yes, ma'am. This one's from Ms. Peters. She says, in the event that Clayton County Public Schools returns to face-to-face, what are the options for families who are not accepted into the Virtual Learning Academy, but still do not want their children to attend a face-to-face setting?
And Dr. Beasley, I'll toss it to you so you can either allow Dr. Simpson or Dr. Lee or any others that you deem appropriate to.
Well,
respond.
I'll start and then I'll pitch it to them. If we return face-to-face and the goal would be for everyone who is not in the Virtual Learning Academy to be attending school face-to-face, those would be the only two options. And so we will be working with all families, and that's why it's important for families, if you want to do virtual learning or at least be considered for it, you need to go ahead and sign up, submit that information, because we have to plan for that. We have to assign teachers, and we have to basically, we'll have so many teachers face-to-face, so many teachers virtually, but it's a limited amount of teachers that we do have, so we have to plan for that. So the expectation would be face-to-face or Virtual Learning Academy for those who sign up and who are approved to attend the Virtual Learning Academy, but one or the other. Dr. Lee and Dr. Simpson.
Yeah, Dr. Lee, go ahead.
Okay, so Dr. Beasley really addressed it. Our goal is to ensure that all of our students have the option for virtual learning or face-to-face, but we really need all of the application data that would be included after this Friday when it closes, August 28th. And from there, after we analyze those parents who want to opt out, like they originally had applied for Virtual Learning Academy, but now they feel comfortable sending their children to school, we'll determine how we have the available resources or staff members to accommodate the virtual learning for all. But it does take a lot of thinking through, assigning staff, making sure we have the courses that can be adapted virtually, and then more information will be provided in September. But our goal is to really support our parents so they feel comfortable.
So Dr. Lee, can you, while we're talking about the Virtual Learning Academy, let's say we come back face-to-face and we run the Virtual Learning Academy parallel with face-to-face instruction. Mm-hmm. Would it be the expectation that students stay at least one semester or throughout that semester and then they may have an opportunity mid-semester to make a decision or change if they want to return face-to-face?
Yes, in our current communication, we've emphasized at least one semester to commit to Virtual Learning Academy. And then they would have the option to return the following semester face-to-face after they look at several factors, whether it's the COVID-19 cases or where we are as a district.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Next question, Mr. Shields.
The next question comes from Ms. Jones. Her concern is regarding inappropriate behaviors during the virtual learning setting and wants to know what the district is doing in regard to discourage these inappropriate displays during class time.
And we'll toss that to Chief Trawick.
Yes, it was basically mentioned when I gave my presentation, and what we're doing, we're making those home visits and we're identifying the behaviors. And unfortunately, some of those students will face consequences through the juvenile justice system because, of course, you know, people will be held accountable for those actions. And it's just inappropriate for some of the displays that we have seen. So that's what we're doing. We're making the home visits. We're apprising the parents of what's going on. We're soliciting their support, like we're soliciting your support currently, to assist us with monitoring our young people so that they are not administering or distributing inappropriate content while they're supposed to be learning. So that's kind of where we are now. You know, we're hoping that we're going to see decreases in that type of behavior with the home visits, and we're hoping the word gets out. So please let your friends know, let your neighbors know that we are monitoring it, and we will not hesitate to make a home visit, working along with our colleagues with the municipalities as well as the courts.
Thank you, Chief Trawick.
You're welcome.
Excuse me,
question.
I'm
Yes,
gonna
Ms. Goree,
have to,
please.
yes, I'm gonna have to step in here as a grandmother and a parent.
Yes, ma'am. Go right
Before
ahead.
we ask the district, what is the district going to do? Let's talk about what parents are going to do.
That's correct.
The children, you are the first teacher.
That's
and
right.
Parents, number one, this is just like having them in school. There is a student handbook. There's a code of conduct. Not only that, there are just plain simple rules that parents should teach to their children about having appropriate behavior whenever and wherever you are. So let us just start looking inward. Parents, please talk to your children about knowing how to act appropriately. And parents, let's speak to you, because there are some parents that are doing some things that are inappropriate, like let's have you dress appropriately because you have your children on cameras. We're seeing things that we don't want to see on the camera. So we need adults to take charge with their children. And then we're asking adults to take charge with your own behavior and work on that as well. I believe Dr. Lee talked about the 5 A's. And just pretend that your children are they're in the classroom. We want them to act appropriately, because what we do not want is, we don't want any criminal records. That's the last thing that we want from, you know, with this predicament that we're in right now.
That's
because
correct.
that is not the purpose of the school district, to have anybody with the record. I was actually looking at some going through some things and saw something my son had received when he was in middle school that I really didn't appreciate that the school district had given to him. But please be responsible. You're the first parent, the first teacher, and let us start working collectively in helping behavior.
Thank you, Chief Trawick, and thank you, Ms. Goree, for your information as well. Mr. Shields?
Yes, ma'am.
Next question.
Next statement is from a Brittany Tucker. She feels that kindergarten students are being expected to upload documents, take pictures, and upload to the school applications, complete slideshow assignments, etc. These tasks are unrealistic for some students as well as some parents. What can we do to mitigate these challenges for our students and parents?
And I'll toss this to Dr. Ebony Lee.
Okay, So for that question, we really want our parents to work with our principals directly and be sure to make sure that they have an opportunity to address the concern. But also we have our assistant superintendents who oversee schools, and we have that question and we have the specific school site. And so we'll make sure that that question is shared with the principal directly to really hone in and address the issue. But again, any concerns related to workload, the virtual learning experience, we're asking that our parents work directly with our principals.
If I may, Dr. Lee, this is Dr. Hendricks, and the parent was a parent of one of the schools that I supervise, and I have talked to the principal during this meeting, and she is going to get back with the parent ASAP. We've come to some agreements because some of what the parent said is true. Our goal is to provide a high quality learning opportunity while maintaining reasonable and realistic expectations as it relates to our reality. With that being said, again, she's going to call the parent and they'll have this solved by tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hendricks.
Thank you, Dr. Lee, and thank you, Dr. Hendricks. Next question, Mr. Shields.
Yes. This next question is regarding digital safety, not to the liking of Chief Trawick, but to the liking of the technology department. The concern is regarding digital safety in regards to hacking digital classrooms.
Mr. Smith.
So many of you know that we started out using Google Meet as our synchronous learning tool, if you will. So I want to say that we had with Google Meet far less controls than we had with the new platform Zoom. One of the things that I and the instructional technology team is working on, well, let me back up for a second. There is no hacking, okay? What's happening is students are sharing those meeting links with other students either in their school or around the district. So you know, if you give someone the keys to your house and they come in your house, you can't say they rob you. You gave them interest into that. So there's no real hacking going on. I know when Zoom had some challenges, you know, early on when the pandemic started, but they've addressed those. So let's talk about and I'll support what you know, our board chair just said. Parents are going to have to take some responsibility. When it comes to your child logging into their Zoom meeting every day, they should use their real name. We've had students to try to log in classes using their principal's name. Okay, that's the student's responsibility. If parents could help us monitor that, if they could also make sure that their students aren't sharing those meeting links with other students around the district. I think ultimately, Chief Trawick alluded to this, they're going to get tired at some point because it's a novelty to them, in spite of the fact that a lot of what's happening is inappropriate. We are working on, to wrap this up, we are working on what I call some Zoom classroom best practices to start sharing with teachers relative to things like ensuring that a child does not enter your room unless they have their name typed correctly. And you don't let them in that Zoom meeting unless they do that. And you could potentially mark them absent. And then the parent will have to get involved or at least be notified that your child was marked absent for the day. Why was your child marked absent? It's not going to be because they didn't try to get in the room, because we'll have the data and the links to show that somebody inappropriate or somebody with a name that was inappropriate tried to join the room. If I have 30 students and I only had one student that didn't join, it's highly likely that I can go to Chief Trawick and help me do an investigation to figure out who that child was, right? So they're going to have to, they really need to do that. There's some other controls that are in place. We locked some things down today relative to students being able to change their names, relative to teachers being able to lock their classroom. Once, if my class, and Mr. Smith used to teach North Clayton Middle School at 8:15, if my door locks, then my door is locked. So students can't get in without, I mean, I'm going to lock that door at 8:15, and then you're going to have to submit or wait for me to come out and verify who you are before I let you in that room. And if I don't recognize your name, if you type Santa Claus as your name, then I'm going to reject you from that classroom, because I'm not going to tolerate that, because many of those students that are have done the right thing are there to learn. There's one thing that we did as a mandatory step for all teachers, to have a waiting room. In Google, you didn't have a waiting room. So kids were able to share that link with anybody in the world. They can jump in and they would be right in that meeting. Now we have with Zoom, it allows the teacher to, it allows us to force those students into a waiting room, and the teacher has to admit those students into the room. What's been happening is, and it's somewhat humorous in the beginning, but now it's becoming an annoyance, that if I was in Dr. Beasley's math class, let's say, and I decided to change my name to Miss Bowles, if Miss Bowles was the principal, he would automatically let me in, thinking that I was the real principal. So we're trying to share some controls or some best practices with principals in the upcoming days. Hopefully we should have that ready by tomorrow. We were working on it earlier today and just having discussions, and we're having to test every scenario, guys. There is no this Zoom nor Google Meet or Microsoft Teams, none of these platforms were developed to deliver synchronous instruction. They were developed as a corporate solution. We've sort of now, and they're adjusting and making changes so that we can use it, because we need it now. Thank God for Zoom and Google Meet, because we're at least able to take advantage of it for the people and the students and the scholars who want to take full advantage of it. But that would be my response. Dr. Beasley, I don't know if you have anything to add. You always do, relative to you know, me sharing things about what's going on with students. One of the things you did share, Dr. Beasley, is that for us to think that we weren't going to have discipline issues when we went into a virtual environment was crazy. I mean, we had discipline issues when we were in a physical environment. Those same discipline issues, with the exception of maybe a physical fight, we're going to have all those same discipline issues that we've had in the past.
You're correct, and I don't really have anything to add. Like Ms. Gorey shared, we just need the parents to help us monitor our kids while they're at home learning virtually. And as you and your team work with the principals and school leadership on solutions to really strategies, if you will, to really minimize that disruption. But I would hope that our students will see, if nothing else, how this pandemic has highlighted so many inequities, and how the lack of education is so detrimental to our community and to the response and to families. And I want them to really understand how, whether it's face-to-face or virtually, we need them to really take advantage of the opportunity to receive their education. You know, we're doing it virtually now, and we're grateful for the tools, but the bottom line is this: they've got to understand how important this education is, not just during this pandemic, but hopefully well after this pandemic. So I know kids will be kids, and we don't want to criminalize our kids and over penalize, but we do need our kids to understand how important it is for them to come to school every day, virtually or face-to-face, and do their best and be on their best behavior so our teachers can teach every day.
Thank you both for your feedback. Mr. Shields will present the next question and provide an update to all about the status of any pending questions.
Yeah, so we have a few questions left. I'm going to try to streamline them so we're not taking up too much of anyone's time. But a couple of questions we have here regarding IEPs and special education. One stakeholder, Ms. Amanda Pham, I feel that kids with IEPs and their needs aren't being considered. What can we do to make sure that they are receiving adequate small group time in the general virtual classroom setting?
And we'll allow Ms. Trina Smith, our Director of Department of Exceptional Services, Students and Services, to respond to that particular question. Ms. Smith?
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone, and community, Dr. Beasley and the board members. That's a great question. We do have all of our services are addressed. I know that Dr. Lee mentioned earlier the parents' virtual toolkit, And I do want to encourage all of our parents that have students with IEPs to go to the Parents Virtual Toolkit. Within the toolkit, once you click on the link, you can go to Student Support Services, and the Department of Exceptional Students is right under there. We have a parents virtual guide to instruction for students with disabilities. And every question that you can see within that has specifically answers information for students with disabilities. And actually the guide answers everything you can for individual types of disabilities and how we can help support those within that virtual environment. So to get a little bit deeper into the answers to that questions, I would send you to the Parents Toolkit to answer those questions. But when it comes to serving our students with IEPs, we do address the students' IEP information. All of our IEPs, as you know, we met virtually with all of our parents and we went through IEP services last year. As we're going into this school year, what we're doing to help parents understand how services are met is we're actually in the process, our lead teachers for special education and your case managers are reaching out to parents and working with you to schedule meetings over the next month and a half so that you can have a more individualized understanding of what the virtual services look like. And they're developing what's called a digital learning plan that will be attached to that IEP. So you have digital learning plan support for the IEP services. So the IEP itself is not being changed. We want you to understand that if your student was in small group, you have small group services virtually. If you have speech services, we have speech services virtually. All of our support services are available in a virtual mode. So we have ways of making sure that all of that is delivered. And then what we want to do within those meetings in our digital learning plans is to ensure that you have a balance of instruction and that we understand how accommodations are being met, how those general ed services are being met, so that all of our teachers are carrying out accommodations, support, knowing when to give children breaks, to build in that synchronous and asynchronous balance, and helping to give parents some additional tools, which we'll also be talking about in our parent training in this upcoming week about fidgets and supports and things that we can do to help them keep acclimated and attentive in the virtual environment.
Thank you, Ms. Smith, for those updates relative to DES services.
Excuse me, Ms. Dawkins.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to have to interject here.
Okay, go right ahead.
Because I need to, those are great answers. I would like to know whether or not, since we're going into the parent portal, can board members get into the parent portal? Because some concerns that I have, for example, someone just mentioned about kindergarten students, something being unrealistic. I find it unrealistic for us to expect some students with IEPs to type in a chat box. I'm not understanding why we don't have maybe some manipulatives for some math activities. And I wish that we could be a little bit more specific about things, since people are watching right now, about things that parents understand. We're going to have these meetings and everything, but that doesn't seem to be a realistic expectation for some of our students. I've been on the phone with quite a few parents who have children with IEPs, and when I'm listening to them being in a regular ed setting, and the curriculum that those students are having, when this child is having difficulty with sight words, but they're in with a regular ed kids, I know at some point they're going to be pulled out, but we need, I'm hoping, you know, and maybe this is not the time or place, but we'll have a meeting on Monday night, and for sure, I would like some specific answers for some solutions for situations like this, because that just doesn't seem realistic to me to have someone trying to type. I can learn how to type in high school, but I'm not real good typing in the chat box myself, so I'm not sure how they would be able to do such activities.
I would just share, Ms. Corey, it's very important because that situation could vary from teacher to teacher. There's no one particular action that all teachers may be doing. So I would encourage the parents, when they have those specific issues, to interact with the teacher and the principal so they can address that. That is so important, because clearly the parent has a perspective of their child that maybe the new teacher doesn't have. So they may have an expectation that the parent knows that the student is not ready to meet. So, but having that communication, I think, would be very, very, very important. There may be some kids who can, as you say, type in the chat box, and there may be others who can't do it. So that's why the teachers and the parents and the principals need to be in communication and have those conversations and come to some type of agreement and resolution when issues like that do exist. So I'll pitch it back to Trina, but I just wanted to remind them that, you know, every child is different. That's why we as educational providers, we have to work with the principals and the parents to figure out exactly, you know, how is this child different and what unique actions do we need to take to meet the needs of this child relative to their IEP, even for those who may not have an IEP.
And that's exactly it, Dr. Beasley. As we know, with students with disabilities, because they have a disability, we lead into an individualized education program. So we use right now the IEP, or the individualized education program, to drive what our digital learning plans look like. So it's a conversation between the parent, the case manager, the lead teacher, and the school as they're designing that overall schedule, the overall support sessions as to what that individual student needs. We teach typing in elementary school. So there are tons of our kids who can type and respond in a chat box and have no issues. And then sometimes it's a matter of giving them simple keys to answer, one key rather than a whole word. There's a lot of little adaptations we do, and what we encourage us to do is take them back to the individual meetings, and we put all those supports and those little key pieces that we can put into those digital learning plans.
Thank you all for your feedback. I believe Dr. Beasley posed a question within our chat box. Dr. Lee, will you be willing to explain the difference between
synchronous and
asynchronous?
Yes.
Thank you.
And thank you, Dr. Beasley, for that question.
I'm surprised Ms. Goree didn't say something about that earlier.
But we have it in the board presentation too with examples. But so parents, community, you may be hearing these terms quite a bit: synchronous and asynchronous. And synchronous essentially means it's happening at the same time. So that means students are logging onto the computer and their teachers are live with them, engaging, leading probably the lesson where they could be modeling, demonstrating, asking questions, but it's live interaction that's happening in real time. So that's synchronous. So you're in sync. Okay. Asynchronous is not happening at the same time. So for asynchronous, students have more responsibility for independent learning. So the teacher will probably post an assignment. They may post, and when I say post, upload a video, a task, and then students have the responsibility for accessing that task and working independently or on their own, possibly without the teacher. So right now we are synchronously engaging in this critical conversation, but later, let's say if they're, it's recorded, you go back and you watch it, then that's asynchronous because you don't have real time with us to ask live questions. So that's the difference, synchronous and asynchronous.
Dr. Lee, for the sake of the discussion, why don't you go ahead and throw in unplugged as well?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Simpson. So unplugged is really what our parents have been asking for, and unplug essentially means unplugging away from the technology for the most part, where you have minimal to no use of technology. So that means students are at home on their own, and they may be doing a task in their textbook. They may be investigating, exploring, using resources at home, but essentially unplug this, unplugging away from the computer so that you give yourself a break, a brain break. And so in our district, we use synchronous, asynchronous, and then unplug learning just to further give our students time away from the digital resources. And on the parent toolkit, there are a lot of health and PE physical activities that our health and PE coordinator, Paul Scott, has uploaded to give students some really creative ways, and our science coordinator with investigations that do not require the computer at all.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lee.
You're
okay,
welcome.
Mr. Shields.
All right, so I'm going to put these two questions together.
Okay.
So the stakeholder would like to know what is being done to assure student safety during practice and games for football and athletic activities, as well as what are the COVID-19 guidelines for bands in regards to practice and playing at football games?
Okay, and we'll extend that question to Mr. Kevin Lee. I'm sorry, Kevin May. I've renamed you, Mr. May.
Thank you, Jada. No problem. Been called.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. For the safety of football and well, basketball is not in season right now. It's a winter sport, but for our fall sports right now, we are following all the COVID guidelines that were put in place by the Georgia High School Association. Some of those include temp checks of all student athletes when they arrive on campus. They also go through a series of COVID questions in regards to who they've been around, have they traveled, and those types of things that help us maybe turn a child away, even if we have to when they show up for practice, should they not meet the criteria to be able to be there. Also, our coaches are wearing masks. There are plenty of disinfecting and sanitization of weight equipment, of athletic equipment, of locker rooms, and there is social distancing where possible. Obviously, you can spread out to do some types of practice, but also there are certain areas of football that you cannot social distance when you practice those things. So we are doing that, and I think it's important to note that all of our neighboring districts are following the same guidelines, so that when we do have interscholastic competition, that we are aware that our neighboring districts are also following the same guidelines as outlined by the Georgia High School Association. And I think Dr. Wiley is on here, so I will turn it over.
Before Dr. Wiley comes on, would you mention the requirement from GHSA for all schools to have an infectious disease plan? Just mention it briefly, please.
Yes, sir. So every school district has an infectious disease plan, which is a process that we go through as a district should we get a positive case, and how we treat that individual student and any student that may have come into contact through contact tracing of individuals, students, coaches, any person that may have been around that individual student. And it would be the same plan that we would use for faculty, staff, any other employees as well. And we have had to use those. Thankfully, athletically, we have done pretty well so far in comparison to many of our neighboring districts, and we hope to stay on that path. I think our coaches are doing a great job right now at our schools.
And so we'll allow Dr. Monica Wiley, our Director of Fine Arts, to respond to the band-related question.
Good evening, and thank you, Jada. We are following the same guidelines as athletics when it comes to the CDC guidelines, the Georgia High School Association, and we're also following the most recent research regarding performing arts. The principals and the band directors will make a game-by-game determination, but will follow the guidelines with physical distancing, wearing masks, putting bell covers on instruments. And if we get to the point where marching bands have to pivot to virtual only, then the band directors have created guidelines so that we can continue to give students experiences in marching band.
Thank you, Dr. Wiley. And I have received an update. We have 2 questions left. And just as a reminder to the public, many of the questions that were redundant, we merged together, or some of them may have been entertained during the course of this meeting. So with that being said, Mr. Shields, please share the last 2 questions, and we'll go ahead and pose those to the appropriate member of our staff.
Okay, excuse me. So this next question, I believe, will be for Dr. Wiley. The stakeholder says, the music education is an important part of the learning experience. When are students interested in fine arts going to get educated that are not a part of the fine arts program? And I believe they're speaking regarding maybe band or orchestra, things of that nature.
Okay, well, it is my goal and the expectation of Dr. Beasley that we continue the arts, especially during this time while we're trying to navigate throughout the pandemic. Right now, all elementary students should be receiving music and visual arts education. At the middle school and the high school level, that's by interest only. So if you have a child, I would suggest that you contact the counselor and the principal to ensure that your child is scheduled into those arts classes. Because if those classes are normally offered in your child's school during a normal school setting, then we are continuing to offer those courses as well. So again, I would suggest that you contact the counselor and contact the principal if you cannot reach the counselor, to ensure that your child is scheduled in the arts.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wiley.
You're welcome.
And the final question, Mr. Shields?
Awesome. So this last one may be a little lengthy. I'll try to summarize it best I can.
Yes, sir.
The concern is there's a lot crammed into one school day. And the concern is that they are not incorporated, it's not flexible for students due to the time constraints. Also speaking to screen time and recording of class lessons for students to go back to them after class is concluded.
Okay, Dr. I was about to say, Dr. Lee, do you mind? Okay.
Yeah, yes, and I alluded to it earlier that we have made adjustments to our schedule, specifically the elementary schedule, to provide the balance between synchronous live instruction versus asynchronous independent learning time, so that there are fewer hours or minutes on the computer for live instruction, and then students have that flexibility to work on their own. Also, we built in more breaks, and then it is an expectation that teachers are recording and posting lessons so that parents and students can refer to those later. So we'll just continue to reiterate and emphasize this in our conversations and our training sessions with our educators. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lee. Do I have any other colleagues that would like to add anything before we close out the question and answer session, and or provide any updates critical to your area of service that you may feel is pertinent for tonight's meeting?
Jada, yes, it's Chief. I would like to add, there was a question that Ms. Williams asked, and it was pertaining to how do you identify bullying in a virtual environment? And my response would be, it's very similar to a face-to-face environment, or when you're monitoring social media. When you're seeing derogatory comments towards an individual, when you see groups of individuals who are targeting a specific person with derogatory information or derogatory comments. Also threats, threats of violence, threats of maybe revealing something that was told in a confidential setting. All of those different aspects of bullying that we've seen when we were face to face are very much applicable to the virtual environment. So I hope that answers the question to the identification of bullying in a virtual environment. Jada.
Thank you, Chief Trawick. Dr. Lee, is it my understanding that you want to add additional information?
Yes, just
for the public?
Just very briefly, Jada, parents, caregivers, community, we will start our beginning of the year testing, and we have been able to work with our schools to convert face-to-face testing to at-home testing. But it's important that our students adhere to the guidance that's been provided by the schools on how to ensure a secure testing environment. So we're just asking parents that you're familiar with the expectations and that our students really take those measures seriously, because this allows us to find out information about where they are. We know that there potentially has been some learning loss or unfinished learning, and these beginning of the year measures will allow us to target our students' needs. So those will be starting in the next couple of weeks, and you should be receiving information from your schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. And if we still have Dr. Alicia Dunn present, if at all possible, could you provide an update regarding enrollment and registration to our public this evening?
Yes, absolutely. Good evening, board members, Dr. Beasley, and community members, as well as colleagues. We're very excited about our new method of enrolling students, although it's been challenging in some instances, but we're making it through every day. And we're very happy that our numbers are on the increase. We've seen a great increase in our kindergarten enrollment. We're, as of today, this morning, 2,526 kindergartners, which is a little over 800 students above where we began on August the 10th. So we're moving in the right direction. We have all of our registrars on board in the support of our district leadership. So we thank you all very much for your support and helping us through each day as we navigate the uncertainty sometimes of our situation, and of course, being supportive to our parents. We do have a video that's posted on our social media sites for registration. It's very detailed, very informative for our parents, as well as we're now offering morning sessions. There are checkpoints for parents to call in and speak with someone regarding their application status between the hours of 8 and 9 a.m. every morning. And we've just had the great idea this afternoon to offer a evening session or even to extend it for the entire day. So that is in the works. That will be coming in the next few days. So we've added some different options for parents to be supportive and to make sure we have touch points every day so that they're able to actually speak with someone if they have questions, or if they just want to check the status of the application, if they're withdrawing, or any other question that they may have relative to this virtual setting. So we're just appreciative and excited about this new opportunity and embracing the challenges as we move forward every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dunn. Any other colleagues before we turn it over to our superintendent and board members for closing remarks? Well, I'd like to say thank you to all of my colleagues. Thank you to everyone for your support in executing our first critical conversation virtual this evening. I'd also like to thank Clayton County community with nearly 300 viewers this evening. We thank you for your support. We thank you for your feedback. As often mentioned by our superintendent, this opportunity with sharing and exchanging critical information gives us an opportunity to troubleshoot any matters that are important to all of us. So we thank you for your time this evening. And without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to the superintendent and any board members as deemed appropriate to prepare any closing remarks for this evening. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jada. I'll give the board members a chance if they want to share, and then I'll kind of close it out. So you all just feel free to jump in there if you have any comments or closing remarks that you'd like to share.
Hey, just wanted to say thank you from District 1. I really, not only in addition to learning a lot, I appreciate a lot of the work that's happening here at Clayton County Public Schools. And one of the things on my mind too is I know we've been talking about this subgroup and that subgroup, general ed, special ed, but coming from my experience in the classroom, good teaching is good teaching. And so often what's best for one of our scholars, especially in general ed, is going to be best for our scholars in special ed. And the same thing is true for our scholars who have IEPs. Small groups are great for everybody to get deeper. Different modalities of learning and demonstrating your knowledge is great for every student. And so just encouraging our teachers to keep the faith and just excited to see how the school year goes. I'll close with saying that in District 1, we have virtual office hours. And so that happens online on Facebook Live. And we're going to do that again this Thursday for any District 1 resident, teacher, student, family, or parent who just wants to check in. So thank you all for this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Bowles.
This is Jessie Goree, a board chair and proud board member for District 3. I just want to go to the old African proverb, which it takes the whole village to raise the child. And I'm just going to commend Dr. Beasley and the whole Clayton County Public Schools team, because as I said, this has been a very difficult, I'm just gonna say that first 5 days was like the whole semester. And had I been a teacher, I would have been saying deuces, because if I couldn't roll out my overhead projector and teach, I just wouldn't be able to do it. But I want to commend Dr. Beasley and team, because we were the very first school district that had a real comprehensive team. You all laid it out. Dr. Beasley got on the round table, and the Reverend came out in him. He made a few people feel a little guilty, and which helped the metro area have other school districts that ended up virtual, because as we saw, the people that didn't want to go virtual, the things that happened with them. So he appealed to the common sense and the best practice for us starting out virtual. And just think, folks, this is the 3rd week. So we're already 1/3 of the way into those first 9 weeks. So, what can happen? And I'm just looking forward to a wonderful year. Everything's coming in place. I actually have let me see, I got my cowbell over here next to the bed. Now, I don't know if I'm gonna have to retire it or what this year, but y'all know I live for Friday night football. So I'm trying to pray that the teams are gonna be ready, because Miss Goree's ready for Friday night. I'm just a little upset that Kevin Gray does not want to have some popcorn in that concession stand for me. But hey, it goes with COVID. That's how it is. I have to bring my own. But anyway, team, thank you all so much for each and everything that you've done. Parents, You know, I always have my phone nearby. So if you need to call me or email me, you know I'm gonna give you a great response. Anyway, thank you all so much for joining.
Thank you, Ms. Goree. I believe I've seen Ms. Johnson's hand raised in our chat room. Ms.
Yes,
Johnson,
yes.
go right
I
ahead.
just wanted to piggyback with our chairperson, Ms. Jessie. I am so proud to be a part of this village, and I just think we've done such a fantastic job getting school begun. And I do thank Dr. Beasley and his team of leaders for the fantastic job that they have done. And again, I'm available if anyone needs me. Feel free to call me or email me or stop me in the grocery store. So everyone take care, have a wonderful evening, and I'm sure the teachers will see those bright faces first thing in the morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Any other board members?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Williams, go right ahead.
Did we ever have a question? Did we for the parents on how to use the Google Classroom and the Zoom, Dr. Beasley?
Say it again. You were muted for a
Oh,
second.
did we put
there.
the training up for the parents for the Google Classroom on how to use it and how to upload stuff? Because I'm still struggling with that.
I'll get Rod
Yeah,
and
y'all
Dr.
gonna
Lee
put
to
a training up for the parents and know how to work
Okay.
through that stuff, and I'm still struggling over here.
Rod in April, May, or Dr. Lee may want to respond, but I'm sure they can get that done if it's not already planned.
Okay, because I thought you said we was putting something up for like a parent training course or something for them to understand how to navigate through the kids' work to know if it's done or whatever.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Smith, Ms. Mayo.
Anybody want to share what parent resources are available? Because it can be a bit daunting.
Yeah, Ms. Mayo is not on the call, but I think Dr. Lee mentioned something about the Parent Academy, or I'm not sure.
Yes, so I can collaborate with April Mayo to have one of the upcoming parent webinars specifically address that issue, Ms. Williams. And so what I'm hearing is just how to maneuver the Google Classroom and all the features that are being required.
Yeah, because my nephew had homework today and she was like, okay, write it down and upload it to the Google Classroom. And I'm like, I don't know what you mean. She's like, take a picture and put it on the computer. I'm like, I still didn't know. I'm like, so
understood.
I'm pretty sure I'm not the only parent out there. It might seem like it, but I know I'm not the only one that's struggling with all this extra stuff.
Any
so
other
to the parents,
closing remarks?
don't be afraid to ask for help.
That's right.
Because we all need it.
Absolutely.
That's my closing remark. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to call Jesse. Thank you. Thank you, Victoria Williams, District 4.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Any others? Dr. Anderson, I'm not sure if you're still on the line with us.
Well, I think that gets everybody. So I guess
Okay,
I'll just.
Dr. Beasley, can I say one thing before you close out?
Mm-hmm.
I received an update from Dr. Normill with the Office of Second Language Learning, and we have 28 parents using our interpreting services this evening.
Excellent.
So I would be remiss if I didn't once again thank the team for supporting us in this endeavor, and we thank the community for chiming in and making sure that you stay connected. So we thank everyone for the opportunity to share and exchange some critical information tonight. And please stay tuned for future meetings via our platform, via our website, and the superintendent's community live meetings. So we thank you. And without further ado, back to you, Dr. Beasley.
Thank you, Jada. Well, thank you to everyone, to the board members, to our parents and staff members. You know, as I close out, I've been thinking and really contemplating, you know, how do we as a district continue to move towards innovation and best practices, even during a virtual environment. And I know that, you know, this experience will help prepare many of our students for virtual learning at the college level or the post-secondary level. Many jobs now are requiring virtual work. So this is really preparing all of us, and in particular our students, for careers that will require that virtual platform or the use of virtual platforms. But I want us to, as a community, to continue to think about what we can do to become that innovative school district. you know, as every kid gets a device and tools, that's what they're considered tools. You know, how do we use these tools to really accelerate learning, to get our kids doing learning on or above grade level, getting connected to the world, the global problems, and interacting with kids in China and India and Africa. You know, we've got the tools now. So I just hope that as a school system, that we would lead in innovation and instructional opportunities for our students. And you know, one thing about it, no one person will ever be able to learn it all because there's so much knowledge and there's so much to learn. So the question I often have is, what do we need to learn right now in order to really impact our world globally, our nation, our state? And how can we use these tools to innovate and to improve the quality of life for everyone, improve families, improve individuals? So I hope that we will continue these conversations. I think maybe, Jada, the next conversation, we should talk about, you know, what does an innovative school district look like now in light of this pandemic and beyond this pandemic? What should we do going forward as a school? We got to, you know, as we get Chromebooks in the hands of all of our students, do we just say we have Chromebooks in their hands, or do we actually do some things with those Chromebooks that connect kids to knowledge and experience and to their peers, not only here in the county, but in the state and around the nation and around the world, those learning experiences? So I hope that we'll continue the conversation. I hope that we'll continue to move towards high performance. I believe that we will, but I hope that we continue to communicate. Parents, you've got to communicate with those teachers and those principals. This is a challenging situation, but the best way to deal with challenges would be to communicate effectively. So I want you to all of you to be encouraged to communicate effectively. And when there are issues, work with your teachers and your principals to resolve, to identify, address, and discuss and resolve those issues. But let's continue to have a great school year. Let's continue to participate in all the engagement opportunities. And let's continue to share ideas as to how we can make it better for everyone. This is about our community, about our school system, about our children. And let's keep that in mind. Everyone who's participating, those of us who are on the virtual platform and those of us who are participating through YouTube or whatever format we're using, we're all on one team. And I think it's important for us to remind ourselves of that. We're on one team, and the team is to help our children get the advantage through a quality education so that they can make some decisions that will just fundamentally change their lives, their trajectories, their families, destinies, and outcomes toward a better, positive, more productive future, long-term and short-term. So just remember, you all, we're all on one team, and that's why we're having these conversations, to just make us a better team, to make us a better school system, to make us a better community. And you all, make no mistake, you know, sometimes the grass may look greener on the other side, but Clayton County, you all got it going on, and we need to acknowledge that. We've got it I mean, if you really look at what's happening in our school system, Clayton County is really making some monumental shifts towards high performance, towards innovation, towards school choice, and towards preparing kids for not just one or two post-secondary options, but for a variety of post-secondary options. And we want to acknowledge that while we continue to make some critical decisions to move us to even higher levels. So thank you to all for participating, and I look forward to seeing all of you at our next critical conversation.
Thank you all, and have a wonderful and safe evening.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.